Right, hello there. Of course, this is me, Alec, my new workshop, and I'd like to welcome you if you haven't seen the previous videos where I go over what it took to get to this new workshop. And so today what I'm going to be talking about are some techniques, principles of forging, and techniques relevant to these principles of forging, which I was first exposed to and taught by Brian Brazeal in Mississippi. First time I went there in 2011. So these principles of forging are the bar, the forwards taper, and the reverse taper. Now, right there you're thinking to yourself, what? Bar, forwards taper, reverse taper, as I certainly did the first time I heard it. And it's a little confusing, but I can guarantee you, once you understand these principles and then the techniques you can apply to create something from these principles and techniques and such, it will help your forging to no end, and I'm really pleased I've learned about this. You know, it's a good way of thinking about forging, in my opinion, so feel free to keep on watching. Get cracking? Right, yeah, I just kind of got lost in what I was going to say there. So, without further ado, let's do some learning. Oh, crap. Yeah, bar, forwards taper, reverse taper. Right, so here I'm going to illustrate what I mean by bar, forwards taper and reverse taper with chalk and a piece of steel for, you know, better contrast. So, bar. What is a bar? A bar is something that has a cross-section that is a maintained cross-section throughout a given length or section of a particular thing, and the sides are parallel because it is a maintained cross-section. So, parallel sides, one there, one there. And that right there is a bar. So I can write on it, bar. So then forwards taper. What is forwards taper? Well, a forwards taper is, I'm sure you understand the meaning of taper. Taper is something whereby the cross-section is diminishing in a certain direction. And now the certain direction we talk about when it's a forwards taper is the direction that is forwards of the operator, manipulator, and person that is actually working. So forwards taper would be going away from me at the anvil. So forwards taper is whereby the cross-section is diminishing at a certain rate away from me, forwards. Now, let's hope that makes sense. So there, give ourselves an F. Now a reverse taper is the opposite of a forwards taper. A reverse taper goes backwards. Cross-section is diminishing in the opposite direction to the forwards taper. So here, I can put an R. Now, forwards taper and reverse taper are interchangeable, of course, depending on how you are viewing the piece and how you are imagining you are manipulating the piece. But these are the principles, that you have two directions of taper. You have no taper, whereby the sides are parallel, and with those principles, in my opinion, these principles that I was first exposed to through Brian Brazeal, you can really break down all forging procedures and use very simple techniques to pull them off. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go into the fire and show you just a few snippets of various techniques you can use to achieve either of these. And I hope you can slowly be able to gain an understanding of what I'm talking about. Right here, this is just theoretical, but once it becomes practical, then it makes sense. Okay, so the piece is now in the fire. It's about to come out. And first, I need to mention something that's key to the practicality of this theory, and that is about our anvil. So, here is the face of our anvil, as you can see, and I have these radiused edges. That is where I will be performing these tasks. Here is the flat of my anvil. Here's the far side or edge of my anvil, and here's the near side or edge of my anvil. Near because it is close to me, far because it is away from me. And now, when we are incorporating this with this theory of bar, forwards taper, reverse taper, in conjunction with the various dies of our hammer, which I'll go through now, the flat die of our hammer, the round die of our hammer, they both serve different purposes, and their purposes mainly revolve around the surface area contact that they each have. The round die has a much smaller surface area contact meaning that there's a concentrated force, meaning that more material will be moved over the given area in which the pressure is applied. Here, flat die, less material will be moved. But it can also serve as a stop, as a kiss block almost, as you would use under a power hammer, whereby in certain situations you cannot reduce stock size more. And as I will go on to explain, this will create a bar. Here I'm going to be demonstrating just one way in which you can achieve a forwards taper. So this here is forwards taper. So I can start on the far edge of the anvil, and that is the edge of the anvil that is most likely to promote a forwards taper with the correct size of your hammer, the correct positioning on the far side of the anvil. So this far edge, with my material at an angle, is promoting this taper. Tilt of my hammer, if I'm using a flat die, is also promoting the taper. But notice how I was using a round die at first, as there is a smaller contact. I'm less likely to dent it by tilting my hammer this way and that way, and it just allows for more efficient tapering. So right here, using the flat die, you do have to tilt your hammer to the taper, to the angle of the taper. Now, Brian Brazeal does have a much more comprehensive video on forward tapers. This is just one way in which you can achieve a forwards taper. There are many other ways, including using a tilt of your hammer, all sorts of other ways, but mainly they will all be going away from you, and the easiest way to promote a forwards taper is by using that far edge of the anvil with your material held at an angle and your hammer held at an appropriate angle. You will see other ways on Brian's channel. So here I'm going to demonstrate the reverse taper and how the reverse taper can be achieved. And you'll see the reverse taper can be achieved just the opposite of the forwards taper. So here we go with the reverse taper. Using my round die and the near edge of the anvil, I will be reducing material towards me, creating a reverse taper. See, then I can work on two sides to get it down further, otherwise I'm going to have to be moving around with material. But as you can see, I am decreasing the dimension of the material in the direction of myself, creating thus a reverse taper, and I'm doing that by using the near side of the anvil. Now here actually is a good point to point out what happens when you forge two sides, pinches and flakes up. But that is beside the point. So then you can planish again. Here you will still have to tilt your hammer if you're using the flat die. That is another beautiful thing about the round dies. Here, I do not have to tilt my hammer. I can hit straight down and apply the greatest amount of force possible in that little area. So there you can see that the near side is going to promote a reverse taper. Far side is going to promote a forwards taper. Now how can we do a bar? So there are many ways to create a bar. Here I'm going to show creating a bar from a bar, and as you will see, I use a flat die, rotate 180 degrees every time, and due to the nature of this technique and the bliss of surface area contact, we will create a parallel bar. Now I could keep going forever and ever. This is a beautiful way of making some flat stuff or whatever, round or square. But you know, planish that out, and then, like so, that's just, you know, a piece of, I don't know, 5/8 by a quarter. So, when you're creating a bar like this, what's happening is you're creating a notch, like this, right here, and then you are flattening out that notch by taking a small baby step, a small bite on the near edge of the anvil, flattening out that notch. But when the hammer reaches, because we're hitting half on half off with the flat die of the hammer, when this notch gets flattened and it reaches, your hammer is now reaching this whole surface. Hammer and anvil are on the whole surface because it is the same, it is parallel. Can't go anymore, and so it's going to act just like kiss blocks on a power hammer. and stop it due to the extra resistance required to move just that much material. Now, because this is just one small tiny area, as you can see, there's just that small amount, however much we put on, like 1/4 inch, 3/16 of an inch, that small amount will move when we hit it. Even at this temperature, it will probably move. You know, it got halfway there. That small amount will move. Whereas if we do the same blow on, say, this whole section of flat, of round stock, barely anything happens. That is all due to surface area contact. Here, I have 2 1/4 inches of hammer face and exactly the same length of anvil face, stopping this blow, resisting. All this round stock is being resisted, is resisting my hammer blow. Pardon me for the little chumble up there. Whereas here, the entire hammer blow, the entire support of the anvil, is resting on only 3/16 to 1/4 of an inch of material, allowing that to move quickly. And then, once it reaches this whole surface, when it gets brought down, your hammer and anvil will stop moving the material because of the amount of resistance. That is how you make a bar. It is all about surface area contact. Using a flat die of a hammer. Surface area contact. Think about it. It does make sense. So now we can round this all off back with our drawing. And now, as you can remember, the forwards taper was created on the far side of the anvil. You can illustrate this by that. Forwards the far side of the anvil, whatever. The reverse taper was created on the near side of the anvil. And as you can see, that kind of makes sense that that's going to happen just due to the nature of the way we hold things. With the far side of the anvil, you cannot hold your material down over a flat anvil face. You cannot do that. The only place that you can do that is on the reverse, on the near side of the anvil. Near side of the anvil, far side of the anvil. Now a bar, naturally what happens on the far side of the anvil is if you're reducing material and you want to create this, then you're not going to be able to create a bar on the far side of the anvil because you have this anvil here, and then it's naturally going to lend to a taper because of these changes in dimension. So you're going to end up with a taper, this being the bottom of the anvil, this being the hammer, a taper that is going to follow that change in dimension. Now, that's why a bar also has to be done on the near side of the anvil, because we feed in so that we make a baby step like this. From this, we feed in to the anvil from the far edge, meaning that this here baby step just quickly gets smushed into another baby step like this, because there is our anvil edge, there is our hammer. Obviously we were forging half on half off, but that's the representation. So we take baby steps in from here to create a bar, and we forge with the round die to create a reverse taper on the near side of the anvil, or a tilted flat die. If you were to use a flat die here to create a reverse taper, what would happen is you would nick in like this and actually create a bar in this point there in the material. There's our taper. As you can see, this area right in there would be made a bar due to the fact that we're using a flat die without an angle. So that's why you either have to have angled flat dies or a radius to be able to create a reverse taper. Now the far side of the anvil is the exact same thing. If we were to use a flat hammer and hit, what would happen is it'd make an indentation like this, and then this portion here is going to be a bar, and that wouldn't be a forwards taper. So the only way you can do that is with an angled flat die, or with a round die, which does not have to be angled to conform to a taper, because it will just hit on any other portion of the radius. So I hope that makes sense, and I can recap by just going back to the basics, that a bar is a portion where the cross section is parallel. Particular area where the cross section is parallel, and it's changing dimensions to create something where the cross section is parallel over a given area. A forwards taper cross-section decreases away from you in the forwards direction. Reverse taper, cross-section decreases towards you in the reverse direction to the forwards taper. Now, how can we equate this to everyday forgings? To demonstrate this, I can use this hot cut hardy. Now, this hot cut hardy is made up of various of these principles of forging. For example, here we have a forwards taper or reverse taper, depends how you view it. In the way in which this is made, this is technically a forwards taper. And so the first thing we do is we forge a taper that goes away from us with a striker. That would be a forwards taper. Then we isolate the material between the blade and the shank using fullers. That is a bar, because we are changing the material dimension and creating a parallel cross section. Now, that is actually a simplified idea of what fullering actually is, because of course fullering is made up of one reverse, one forwards, various different radiuses to create that. But in simple terms, fullering is one finite thing, it is one certain radius, and we can, that is what happens when you fuller something, so we can effectively call that a bar. So, let's recap. Forwards taper, bar for the fullering, and then a reverse taper for the blade. So from this bar, which isolates our material from the blade, we can create a reverse taper. As you can see, this taper for the blade. So this is just one way of explaining this. Now, we can look at this scribe here. How is this scribe made up? Here we have forwards taper, reverse taper, bar. Bar. How is a hammer made up? Here is a hammer. Let's talk about the changes of cross-section only. So we have bars formed in the troughs. We have even forwards tapers and reverse tapers inside the eye due to the shape of a correct hammer eye. The correct shape of a hammer eye is an hourglass. This is a slightly exaggerated drawing of what it would be. This is an hourglass. And that is inside our hammer eye. And that means that we have both forwards and reverse tapers inside the hammer eye. So the hammer eye is made up of bars, forwards tapers, and reverse tapers. That's how our changes of dimension are happening. And because of the way that we do actually upset the hammer a little, that is creating a bar, because we're creating an equal cross section as we move the material around. So one crucial element to think about in tongs is these three principles. Because when we look at a tong, and this is the only way that you can create a strong, structurally stable tong. Please look at Brian Brazeal's one heat tong blank video and his clay one heat tong blank tutorial. He will talk about tapers and bars in that, and I can assure you will have a much greater understanding of the processes by talking about that. So here in a pair of tongs, what do we have if we break it down? We have our bit. Now this is the jaw, the bit, jaw, whatever you like. In this plane here, it happens to be a forwards taper. It is often a bar. The sides are often parallel. Here it is tapering away from me. And then so we're going to stay in this particular plane of view for this first explanation. Then we have our boss. Here, these sides here, you see? The planes are parallel. That means that that is a bar. The boss is a bar. Then we look just behind the boss. This is key for the strength. Right here, we have a reverse taper, which leads into a bar at the bottom of the rein of the tongs. Now, I've seen it time and time again, where people make tongs, and the area up here by the boss is smaller than an area at another point in the reins. Structurally, this is the weakest point in the tong, and there is no need to waste material by having anything thicker in the reins, because this is where it will bend, and funnily enough, this is exactly where the most leverage is applied, in this area here. So structure is very key in tongs. It is the most key thing. And then if we look at the hole as well, that is a bar. It runs straight through, so the rivet is straight. Now, if we change orientation into this particular orientation, because this is one pair, it's going to be a little more difficult to see, but you can see that here on our drawer, this particular pair of tongs, it is a bar. These are parallel, these sides. And then we look at our boss. Another one of the most important things in tongs is making sure that our boss is parallel here. If our boss has a taper in any direction, our tongs will not open and close smoothly or in a straight plane. It's ridiculous. It would be like having an angle grinder whereby the thingamadoohickey, the blade, the thingamadoo, yeah. It'd be like having the wheel on a car where the axle is bent. You know, it's just stupid. And again, if you had a forwards taper here, that would be the weakest point. You'd be creating a weak point here, and there'd be no need for any of the strength back here at the boss. So this is key. This must be a bar. And the only way you can achieve this being a bar is by having a smaller area, a smaller reverse taper at this point in the reins. The only way you can create this reverse taper in the reins is by being on the near side of the anvil. Go look at the one heat tong blank videos. Notice what you will see in no other tong blanks. We break it down on the near side of the anvil so that we can create this reverse taper, this key element of the tongs that stops it getting blocked by the other tong and allows you to have a bar in the boss. These are very crucial points. The structure of a tong is very important, and if you ever spend some time and talk about tongs with me, I will go mad and go crazy and just keep talking about the structure of tongs, because that is very, very important. As you can see, look at this structure. Here we have a reverse taper, and this is the thickest point. And there goes my phone. That is just perfect timing. Another method of illustrating forwards taper bar reverse taper is the two-sided taper. Now you can hear the two-sided taper being talked about in many of Brian Brazeal's videos and in Brian Brazeal's demonstrations and teachings and such. But as you can see, this would be a leaf that I'm dividing up. So I have a forwards taper for the leaf. I then take a certain amount of material, a certain amount of bar, and I break it down, and I'm creating a forwards taper by using the round bar of my hammer with the material at an angle over the far edge of the anvil. I break this down, and then come to the near edge of the anvil, and I need to create a reverse taper. That way is the only way I can eliminate that forwards taper that I create by being on the far side of the anvil. So I have to get this side, this part, below the thickness of that area at the far side of the anvil. Then I get these two forwards tapers and reverse tapers. The only way I can get to a full throughout reverse taper is by creating a bar. So I come here and I create a bar. I get that lump down. I reduce surface area contact by tilting the round die on my hammer, because this is not a perfect ball. This is like a squash ball. So I get squashed ball. So I get different radii as I tilt my hammer. And as you can see, I went from forwards taper to bar to reverse taper. There is a reverse taper in there. I can then come to the near side and continue that reverse taper on down by taking baby steps. With the round die of the hammer. That was all with the round die of the hammer, as you can see. Then I would plunge that. And making sure the hammer is tilted. But as you can see, that is how you break down the two-sided tapers. This is how you can apply all these techniques of forwards taper, reverse taper, and bar. Apply these techniques to the different areas of your anvil, different sides, radii, contact surfaces of your hammer. Apply it to your bar hammer. Apply it to all of that. Once you get these principles down, you can create the correct structure for all types of forgings, from leaf keychains to tongs to hammers, to rings and jewellery. This ring was made using two-sided tapers. This here band I wear on my arm was made by creating a bar on the near side of the anvil with half hammer faced blows. Everything is made from these techniques, and I guarantee you that it is very simple to be able to create structures using the near far side of your anvil, different radii, different surfaces of your hammer, and the knowledge of how they both apply to forged tapers, reverse tapers, and bars. Alright guys, I hope that video has been informative to you and you have learned something by it. That is what I'm trying to achieve with these videos. I really hope that you're enjoying the videos. I try, it takes a lot of effort to put these together, and all your support by subscribing, sharing, liking, commenting, all that stuff really goes a long way to helping the channel and me making more videos. So thank you very much those that are supporting me currently. I really do appreciate it, and I hope these videos and techniques and these principles go a long way to shortening your learning curve in forging. I know that for whatever, the small stuff that I do, these techniques really are helpful, and I've seen them applied to different things, and I'm sure it can help whatever you're doing, from whether you're making knives to whether you're just making jewelry. Thank you very much. Have a wonderful day. You like the hat? I like the hat a lot. Stetson.